In this video, we are going to talk about how recession will happen and will there be one in 2023. So before starting, please like this video and subscribe to this channel for our future updates. A recession is a business cycle contraction that occurs when there is a broad fall in economic activity. Recessions typically develop when there is a significant decrease in spending, an adverse demand shock, a financial crisis, an external trade shock, an adverse supply shock, the bursting of an economic bubble, or a large-scale anthropogenic or natural calamity may all induce this. Such a downturn in economic activity may endure for several quarters, stifling an economy's progress. In this case, economic metrics such as GDP, business earnings, employment, and so on collapse. This destabilizes the entire economy. To combat the threat, most economies loosen their monetary policies by injecting more money into the system, i.e., raising the money supply. This is accomplished through decreasing interest rates. Increased government expenditure and reduced taxation are both regarded viable solutions to this problem. Rising inflation rates and negative GDP numbers have many Americans concerned about the possibility of another recession. This could be a genuine fear, given that the U.S. economy appears to be slowing following a period of moderate expansion. A comprehensive knowledge of what a recession is provides context. A recession occurs when the economy's performance declines for several months, as seen by GDP contraction, greater unemployment rates, and lower consumer spending. People's daily lives may be significantly impacted during a recession. Everything from groceries to shoes is frequently more expensive, and workers' job security may be reduced. Here's what you need to know to survive the storm. What happens during a recession? There is no single conclusive evidence of a recession. However, the NBER's Business Cycle Dating Committee considers the following signs when choosing whether to declare a recession. Personal income minus government transfers. When the economy is in a slump, revenues stagnate or fall as a result of firms cutting hours or downsizing their staff. Income disparity may worsen as well, because the wealthy are frequently less affected by a recession than the middle or lower classes. Employment. During a recession, the unemployment rate, the percentage of the total labor force that is unemployed but actively looking for work, tends to rise as businesses cut back on personnel to cut costs. According to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, unemployment hit a high of 14.7% in April 2020, the pinnacle of the recession during the COVID-19 pandemic. Industrial production, manufacturing. During a recession, businesses typically reduce production in reaction to increased raw material costs, and manufacturing activity falls. This shift has the potential to reduce exports and overall economic activity. Manufacturing activity in the United States, for example, decreased substantially during the Great Recession as corporations cut production and fired off people. Manufacturing employment fell by 10% during this recession, and the manufacturing sector only began to recover in 2010, after the recession had officially ended. Consumer spending. One component of consumer spending is retail sales, which is the total amount of money spent by customers on goods and services. Retail sales often fall during a recession because consumers have less money to spend. When retail sales fall, the economic impact can be significant. Businesses may be forced to lay off people in order to save costs, and others may close. How a recession may affect you. Whether or not an economic slump is legally referred to as a recession, the implications of an impending recession may have an impact on your daily life. People are frequently affected in the following ways. Cost of living increases. When inflation contributes to a recession, you may notice that household necessities such as groceries, gasoline, and clothing are more expensive than they were previously. Higher costs make it more difficult to make ends meet. Therefore, people generally resort to strict budgeting and limitations in discretionary expenditure. Job loss or reduction in hours. In order to conserve money during a recession, businesses frequently lower their worker levels. You may lose your job or have your working hours reduced. Difficulty finding employment. Workers have dominated the labor market for a long time. As firms battled for a limited pool of workers, they could secure new positions with better compensation and additional amenities. That is likely to change during a recession, with competition for the few available positions increasing and the ability to locate a new work taking substantially longer. Recessions are common. They occur every few years once the economy has peaked. Although it can be frightening if you haven't been through one before, You can get through most economic shifts by planning, saving, and decreasing your expenditure. 5 signs the world is headed for a recession. According to research firm Ned Davis, there is now a 98% risk of a worldwide recession, which brings some depressing historical reality to the discussion. Only twice before has the firm's recession likelihood reading been as high, in 2008 and 2020. When economists predict a recession, they often base their prediction on a number of factors. Let's unpack few key trends. The mighty US dollar. The US dollar has a disproportionate impact on the global economy and international finance. And it is currently stronger than it has been in 2 decades. The Fed is the most straightforward reason. When the U.S. Federal Reserve rises interest rates, as it has been doing since March, the dollar becomes more desirable to global investors. The dollar is seen as a safe haven for money in any economic scenario. In a turbulent environment, such as a global epidemic or an Eastern European war, investors have even more reason to buy dollars, usually in the form of U.S. government bonds. While a high dollar is advantageous for Americans traveling abroad, it causes problems for almost everyone else. The value of the British pound, euro, Chinese yuan, and Japanese yen, among others, has plummeted. This raises the cost of vital imports such as food and fuel for those countries. As a result, central banks that are already dealing with pandemic-induced inflation end up hiking interest rates higher and faster in order to protect the value of their own currencies. The dollar's rise also has a destabilizing influence on Wall Street, as many S&P 500 businesses do business globally. According to Morgan Stanley, each 1% increase in the dollar index has a negative 0.5% impact on S&P 500 earnings. America's economic engine stalls. Shopping is the most important driver of the world's greatest economy. And Americans are tired of shopping. Consumers have retreated after more than a year of rising costs on almost everything, with incomes failing to keep pace. Consumers are digging into their savings as a result of the pain created by inflation. EY Parthenon chief economist Gregory Dacko wrote in a note Friday. According to Dacko, the personal saving rate remained constant in August at 3.5%, near its lowest level since 2008 and significantly below the pre-COVID level of around 9%. Once again, the Fed is to blame for the market's downturn. During the 2020 lockdowns, Americans opened their wallets, propelling the economy out of its brief but severe pandemic recession. Since then, government aid has dried up and inflation has taken hold, driving up prices at the quickest rate in 40 years and eroding people's purchasing power. Corporate America tightens its belt. Despite historically high inflation, business has been expanding across industries over the most of the epidemic era. This is due to the resilience of American customers, since businesses were able to pass on their greater expenses to consumers in order to cushion profit margins. FedEx, which operates in over 200 countries, suddenly reduced its projection, stating that demand was weakening and that profitability would likely fall by more than 40%. In an interview, the company's CEO was asked if the downturn foreshadowed a global recession. "I believe so," he said. "These numbers don't look promising." Global recession likely in mid-2023. J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon stated on Monday that a worldwide and U.S. economic slump is expected by mid-2023. According to the CEO of the U.S.-based multinational investment bank and financial services corporation, growing inflation in the U.S. and globally, higher than expected interest rates, and Russia's war in Ukraine are all extremely severe elements that could lead to a recession. "These are extremely severe things that I believe will push the U.S. and the world. Europe is already in recession, and they're likely to put the U.S. in some form of recession 6 to 9 months from now," Dimon told CNBC. The U.S. Federal Reserve, like many other central banks across the world, has been aggressively hiking interest rates to combat inflation, which is currently at its highest in many countries in decades. China's predicted reopening after nearly 3 years of COVID-19 limitations is set to lead a comeback in its own economy and other emerging Asian markets, stated analysts at the investment bank in a series of publications released on Sunday. Risks are to the negative, with the global economy expected to grow by 2.2% next year, lower than the IMF's latest 2.7% growth prediction. Morgan Stanley anticipates a clear divide between industrialized economies in or near recession and emerging economies recovering somewhat next year, although an overall global recovery will likely remain elusive. China's economy is estimated to grow by 5% in 2023, exceeding the emerging market average of 3.7%, while the group of 10 industrialized countries' average growth is only 0.3%. Central banks around the world have hiked interest rates this year to combat runaway inflation, and Morgan Stanley forecasts that the Federal Reserve will maintain rates high in 2023 as inflation remains high after peaking in the fourth quarter of this year. The U.S. economy just avoids recession in 2023, but the landing isn't as soft as it looks as job growth slows and the unemployment rate rises, the research stated, expecting a 0.5% expansion next year. The cumulative effect of restrictive policy in 2023 spills over into 2024, resulting in 2 extremely bad years, according to the research. According to the analysts, global inflation should peak in the current quarter as well, with disinflation driving the narrative next year. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoy this video and want to hear from me again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. Thanks for watching.